This is the story of a flashing red scanner at the heavily guarded wrought iron gates of Buckingham Palace, and the exact moment a carefully engineered 30-year public relations campaign collided with a brick wall of institutional reality. What Camilla just realized behind closed doors, as her adult children were politely but firmly ordered to step out of the Sovereign, arrival lane and redirected to a side entrance used by vendors and palace staff, is that the illusion of her absolute power has been entirely dismantled. In less than 60 seconds, right before the flashes of global paparazzi and the eyes of the British elite, a shadow dynasty she had spent years trying to legitimize was publicly and devastatingly locked out. What this video will unpack is the secret institutional power grab Camilla attempted, in order to elevate her non-royal bloodline to the status of working royals, and how Prince William uncovered the deeply hidden administrative paper trail. We will explore the silent, ruthless retaliation that William executed without ever raising his voice, and the devastating realization Camilla now faces. She may have convinced the king to share his throne, but she has just discovered that she does not, and never will, control the keys to the castle. To fully grasp the staggering psychological impact of this visual humiliation, we must step back and rebuild the illusion of absolute power that Camilla had so meticulously constructed. For 3 decades, her survival and ultimate ascension relied on a singular, unwavering strategy. She viewed the British monarchy not as a sacred 1,000-year-old institution, but as a corporate entity ready for a hostile takeover. Her ultimate goal was never simply to become the king's wife. Her objective was total institutional integration, a complete whitewashing of history that would not only erase Princess Diana's legacy from the palace walls, but also elevate her own private family, the Parker Bowles bloodline, into the untouchable stratosphere of the British royal family. For years, Camilla played a brilliant patient game of incremental encroachment. It started with subtle optics. She slowly began weaving her son, Tom, and her daughter, Laura, into the visual fabric of the monarchy. What began as private invitations to royal estates slowly morphed into front-row seats at state ceremonies, prominent positioning at the coronation, and carefully choreographed balcony appearances that projected the image of a new blended royal dynasty. Camilla believed that she had Charles so completely controlled that the public and, more importantly, the institution itself, would simply accept her children as an unofficial extension of the crown. Right before the collapse, she felt invincible. She walked through the corridors of power believing that because she wore the queen consort's crown, her shadow family was inherently entitled to the same taxpayer-funded privileges, the same impenetrable security buffers, and the same absolute deference as the born heirs to the throne. But behind this billionaire PR machine lay a staggering social and commercial desperation. Camilla knew that without the king's direct intervention, her children were just private citizens. They did not possess the generational majesty or the constitutional protection of the Windsors. Therefore, she needed to secure their status not through public approval, which she could never fully win, but through the weaponization of administrative protocol. This desperation became the trigger for a highly classified secret maneuver that would ultimately lead to her downfall. Knowing that King Charles was entirely dependent on her emotional support and increasingly detached from the day-to-day bureaucratic management of the royal household, Camilla quietly initiated an administrative trick. She bypassed the standard security vetting procedures and instructed the royal household staff to issue highest-tier, permanent VIP security lanyards to her children. In the rigid, hyper-classified world of royal security, this specific level of access is strictly reserved for senior working royals, high-ranking intelligence officials, and heads of state. It grants the bearer the ability to bypass all standard security checkpoints, drive vehicles directly into the private quadrangles of the palaces, and utilize the sovereign entrances entirely unbothered. By secretly granting her children this unprecedented level of institutional access, Camilla was effectively conferring upon them royal status through the back door. It was a breathtaking overreach, a quiet, systemic attempt to merge her private family with the sovereign state. She assumed that the royal protection officers would never dare question a directive that came from the Queen's office. She assumed her paper trail would remain buried within the sprawling administrative ledgers of the palace. But she fatally underestimated the forensic, unyielding guardianship of Prince William. Prince William does not govern through emotional outbursts or tabloid leaks. He governs through a cold, devastatingly analytical understanding of the institution he was born to protect. As the Prince of Wales, William views the monarchy through the lens of duty, survival, and the silent, enduring grief for his mother Diana. He watches his wife Catherine sacrifice her privacy, her health, and her autonomy to serve the crown without a single complaint. To William, the monarchy is a sacred trust, and the privileges of the institution are paid for by the blood, sweat, and public service of its working members. Weeks before a massive globally televised royal gala, William was conducting a routine operational and security review with the head of the Royal Protection Command. During this forensic audit, William uncovered the anomaly. He saw the security manifest. He traced the paper trail. It did not take long for him to realize exactly what Camilla had done. The administrative records clearly showed that Tom and Laura Parker Bowles had been quietly elevated to a security tier equal to that of his own children, the future heirs to the British throne. The moral outrage William experienced in that moment was profound. This was not a petty family squabble over who gets to park where. This was an existential threat to the integrity of the crown. It was a blatant, unapologetic capitalization of the institution. Camilla was using the untouchable prestige and the taxpayer-funded security apparatus of the British monarchy as a private VIP club for her non-royal children. It was the ultimate insult to Catherine's tireless work and a direct erasure of the boundaries that separate the sovereign bloodline from private citizens. But Prince William did not scream. He did not confront his father and demand that Camilla be punished. He knew that engaging in a chaotic emotional battle would only play into Camilla's hands. Instead, William utilized the exact same administrative system Camilla thought she had conquered to execute a silent, lethal retaliation. He weaponized the rules, working strictly within his constitutional authority, and alongside the highest-ranking security directors, William simply ordered a complete immediate reset of all palace security protocols to their exact legal definitions. The execution of this revenge was a masterclass in bureaucratic warfare. A formal security directive was issued to all royal protection officers, stating unequivocally that highest-tier all-access clearances were immediately restricted to born royals, currently active working royals, and their legally recognized dependents. All other previously issued permanent passes, regardless of who authorized them, were instantly voided. The directive did not mention Camilla's children by name. It did not need to. The trap was set perfectly within the confines of standard operating procedure. The day of the royal gala arrived, carrying with it a tension that only a few palace insiders understood. Inside the opulent halls of Buckingham Palace, Camilla was holding court. She was draped in royal jewels, waiting for the triumphant arrival of her son and daughter through the sovereign entrance, eager to solidify the optic of her untouchable shadow family. Outside, a sleek black car pulled up to the heavily fortified grand gates. Tom and Laura Parker Bowles sat in the back, confident and ready to glide through the security perimeter, just as they had done dozens of times before. The window rolled down. The permanent VIP lanyards were presented to the stoic royal protection officer. The officer scanned the barcodes. A sharp, unmistakable red light flashed on the scanner. The passes were dead. What happened next was a moment of pure, concentrated institutional humiliation. The officer did not apologize for a system error. He did not call the King's office to ask for an override. Acting on the explicit, unyielding orders of the Prince of Wales, the officer looked directly at the Parker Bowles children and delivered a polite, devastating instruction. He informed them that their current security clearance was classified as standard civilian visitor. Therefore, they were strictly prohibited from using the sovereign arrival lane. They were ordered to reverse their vehicle exit the royal perimeter and proceed down the street to the staff and vendor side door, where they would be required to stand in line, empty their pockets, and pass through metal detectors like any other member of the general public. Inside the palace, Camilla's encrypted phone buzzed. She received the frantic message from her children just as she was preparing to walk into the grand ballroom. The realization hit her with the force of a physical blow. The security passes were gone. The sovereign access was revoked, and she knew instantly, with a cold, terrifying certainty, exactly who had shut the gate. William had not just embarrassed her children, he had delivered a silent, undeniable message. He had trapped her in an administrative corner, proving that while she might share the king's bed, she possessed absolutely zero structural power to grant royal status to her own blood. The illusion was shattered, and the true architect of the monarchy's future had just revealed his hand. The psychological climax of this public humiliation did not unfold at the wrought iron gates in front of the paparazzi. It happened hours later in the suffocating heavy quiet of the king's private apartments. When Camilla finally confronted Charles, she did not approach him as a grieving mother, but as a queen demanding the restoration of her empire. She presented the voided security manifests and the frantic messages from her children, fully expecting the king to instantly issue a sovereign override. She framed the incident as a catastrophic bureaucratic error, a deliberate insult executed by rogue security officers that required immediate royal correction. She asked him to pick up the encrypted phone and order the Prince of Wales to reinstate the VIP access. But Charles did not pick up the phone. For the first time, the king looked at his wife and then looked away. He understood instantly what William had done, and more importantly, he understood how brilliantly it had been executed. The directive to revoke the passes was not an emotional attack. It was a flawless enforcement of constitutional security protocol backed by the highest intelligence directors in the country. Charles realized that if he attempted to overturn this ruling, he would not just be undermining his son. He would be explicitly ordering his security apparatus to break its own strict legal codes for the sole benefit of his wife's private bloodline. He would have to publicly declare war on his heir, the man who now held the overwhelming majority of the public's trust. The king offered no defense. He signed no override. His devastating silence was the ultimate admission of his own institutional limitations. This silence forced Camilla to confront the terrifying reality of her commercial desperation. To the public eye, she is a queen draped in diamonds. But the brutal truth is that she is entirely dependent on the structural wealth of the institution, wealth that she does not actually control. By stripping her children of their taxpayer-funded royal security passes, William did not just inconvenience them, he stranded them financially. To maintain the elite, friction-free lifestyle and the impenetrable security buffers that Camilla had grown accustomed to providing for her family, they would now have to hire private top-tier security firms. That level of protection costs millions of pounds annually, money that the Parker Bowles family does not organically possess, and money that Camilla cannot simply siphon from the sovereign grant without Princess Anne and Prince William noticing. The illusion of absolute power was broken by a simple administrative truth. Access to the British monarchy is not a right you can marry into. It is a highly monetized, fiercely guarded resource. While Camilla privately drowned in this realization, the visual shifts in power at the royal gala delivered a master class in institutional correction. William did not gloat. He did not issue a statement to the press. He allowed the newly restored order of precedence to speak for itself. When the royal procession finally entered the grand ballroom, the spatial dynamics had been fundamentally altered. For years, Camilla had successfully engineered the seating arrangements to position her children just steps away from the sovereign circle. But tonight, The royal manifest was ruthlessly exact. Tom and Laura Parker Bowles were seated far back in the room, deeply embedded within the civilian guest tables, completely entirely severed from the royal visual narrative. This visual demotion was instantly mirrored by the subtle yet deeply emotional elevation of Catherine, the Princess of Wales. Throughout Camilla's long, quiet campaign to erase Princess Diana's legacy and insert her own family into the frame, Catherine had maintained a dignified, uncomplaining distance. She never leaked to the tabloids, and she never engaged in petty squabbles over arrival logistics. But as Camilla's shadow family was publicly pushed out the side door, Catherine's undisputed authority was visually reinforced by the institution. As Catherine glided into the ballroom, eagle-eyed royal analysts noticed a profound shift in her presentation. Pinned to her sash was not just a standard royal order, but a specific, breathtaking piece of the royal collection. A magnificent diamond and sapphire brooch that had been a favorite of Princess Diana, a piece that had remained quietly locked away in the royal vaults for decades. The sudden reappearance of this specific jewel on this specific night was not an accident. In the hyper-calculated world of royal optics, where every gemstone is a forensic message, this was Prince William executing a silent, flawless victory. He was publicly restoring his mother's legacy, protecting his wife's rightful place, and reminding the room exactly whose bloodline dictates the future of the crown. The reappearance of the sapphire was accompanied by a chilling realization for Camilla. The British monarchy is not a family business that can be manipulated by a clever wife. It is a 1,000-year-old machine designed to protect its own survival. It can be temporarily influenced, and it can be momentarily distracted by the affections of a king. But it can never be permanently captured by an outsider. Prince William simply waited for the exact right moment, allowed Camilla to overextend her grasp, and then used the very bureaucratic machinery she thought she controlled to quietly strip her of her actual power. William did not destroy her in the press. He destroyed her in the ledgers. He exposed the staggering commercial desperation hiding behind the billionaire PR machine, and he proved with cold, devastating restraint that the illusion of absolute power evaporates the moment the real heirs change the locks. Thank you for exploring this deep dive into the hidden power dynamics of the British royal family. If you found this forensic analysis compelling, please subscribe and leave your thoughts in the comments below on how the institution handles those who reach too far.